All right, you saw last week's video. We're working on the front of the motorhome, so let's just jump right into it, pick up where we left off. Hey, buddy, do you want to weld some plastic with me? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay, it involves some hot soldering irons and stuff like that. It's kind of dangerous. You think you can handle it? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Maybe you just want to drink your juice instead?
Yes. No, this is a lemonade.
Oh, it's lemonade, not juice. Okay.
Okay.
Well, should I do the welding then? The plastic welding?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do it. Hey, kiddo, what you doing? Are you driving?
Yes.
I got my wish. It's pouring down rain, so I got to test the waterproofing, starting with these lights here. And those are, I don't feel any wetness around those lights. So you can see they're kind of lit up just from the daylight coming through. However, the interesting thing is you see there's a drop right there. Watch this. See that? That's water. And so the body filler itself is not waterproof. You have to have the paint over it to actually waterproof. It's a little bit rainy.
Yes.
So Dex, are you going to tell them about the leaky roof?
A leaky roof is getting water into a bus.
Yeah, so we can see there's all the drips coming off of those moments. And that's just coming off of the yeah, see, that's just coming off of there. Well, it's been like a week and a half since I got the welder set up, and a good week since I got the garage all organized. So it's about time I started practicing the welding, because I have a long way to go with my skill set until I'm ready to start welding to that thin sheet metal on the outside of the motorhome. And to that end, I've made these ugly, horrible things. This was a butt weld, and there was no filler rod added. I just sort of, dragged the electrode across there and was able to get that butt weld to happen. But you can see how much I keyholed it and burned it out on either side. And then I just started having this problem with sputtering, and I just could not get a good, nice line, even without adding filler rod. I was just trying to get a nice, clean line across there. And to come to find out, I wasn't getting good grounding connection. Now, I did strip this plate of the clear coat. You can see a little of the clear coat that's left. So I stripped it of the clear coat, but it still wasn't getting a good enough grounding. And what solved my problem was when I started to use this heavy weight, and I, again, kind of stripped all the rust that was on it off of it, just so that I could use it to hold my aluminum to the bed. Like so. I've figured it out. So you see this line here and that line there. Those were just little practice puddles. I was just trying to push a puddle without adding any of this filler rod here. And I did that after the electrode had been run on that mild steel. So I pretty much burned the electrode clean on the mild steel running, what is that, DC. Then I did the tack weld here, which you can see is also kind of clean. But look at that nasty ugliness. Look at all that horrible ugliness. I did these after regrinding the tip with my diamond cutoff wheel on the Dremel tool. So my diamond cutoff wheel is contaminating the tip, and that's where all of this horrible ugliness is coming from. So I might yet get my skill level up to a point where I can weld the motorhome skin myself. So I was sharpening with this. I switched up to this tool, which I've never used before on anything ever. And this is what I got out of it. Still not nearly as clean as those two passes. Like, keep in mind, I'm not even adding filler rod. I'm just trying to drag it across. You see all the, carbonation, all that crap? And I did try to reburn that electrode clean once again by just, getting it nice and hot here. And it did sort of spark on me for a minute. So that's a completely contaminated tungsten electrode. I need to go buy a tungsten sharpening stone tomorrow. What are we looking at here? Well, we've got two different castings, and the black one seems to be newer, like it was replaced at some point during the life of the motorhome. I don't know why that would have happened, but we can see that the paint here has been worn off a little bit, but it's not bad. It's smooth still, and it's not degraded, and there's no cracks in it, and it's just overall in better condition. This part here, I think, is original to the motorhome. We can see there's a crack right there in the corner, and up here at the top, there's just pitting, and it feels really rough, like, maybe gravel, debris flying off of other cars has just sort of pitted it over time. So I need to sand that smooth and do some plastic welding to fix this crack and get that hole back to being a complete hole instead of just a crescent. So yeah, a little bit of work, not too bad. The grill here. Overall, it's in pretty good condition. Obviously need to get rid of the moss and clean it up. But there's a crack up here in the top and the middle, and also, or I'm sorry, that's at the bottom in the middle. And up here at the top of the grill, we can see it separates. So more plastic welding needs to happen there, and a lot of bit of plastic buildup. Some sanding, just a lot of repair work needs to happen right there. And then of course I will be sanding the whole thing smooth and repainting it all black. There won't be any silver accents once I'm done. Looking at the back, we can also see this other crack that needs to be repaired. That's a big one. And the big thing to deal with here is the mounting hardware. You can see what happens is there's this insert, kind of like a riv nut, and this one pulled out, even though it's got the barbs. So I think it pulled out, where was that? Not there, there's the inserts. So it was there. There we go. So I'm also going to have to maybe fill that up with plastic from the 3D printer pen and heat this up and resync that back in there after I've gotten the shank out, or I should say the stud out of the threads. So that's going to be a bit of work, but I really do want to have that threaded insert back installed. Step 1, wash all the grime off. Step 2, rough up the plastic with some coarse sandpaper, or in this case I'm using the wire wheel on my drill. It's just faster. You need to figure out what kind of plastic you're repairing, and I've done the melt and smell test here. So I've got my soldering iron set to about 250 degrees, and you can see that I've melted this part right here and this part right over here on the other one. And this older white colored plastic really smells more pungent, but they both have that pungent smell, so they're both made out of ABS. And you'll know ABS because it's the most stinky, pungently gross smelling plastic that there is. So the next thing you're going to need is some filler, and this is what I'm going to use for filler rod here. This is just some ABS filament. Comes in rolls, and you guys know that I've got 3D printers, so you can get this stuff. You can probably get a little bit of a loop of it like this for like $3 from eBay, or I buy it in 1 kilogram spools for 3D printing with. So once you have this, you need a way to melt it, and that's where the TIG torch comes in. So thankfully, I've got this 220 TIG that plugs into 220 volts, and just like I'm running aluminum, I've got to run this thing on AC. I really need to punch through the plastic here, because plastic generally doesn't want to conduct electricity, so you got to turn this thing all the way up, just as high as it will go with the volts. So that ought to do the trick. Let's see if this will work. No, I'm just kidding, you guys. Of course you can't use a TIG torch to melt plastic, but there are a couple of different techniques, so let's go over them. The first one involves a Dremel tool. So you can see I've got a length of this chucked up in the collet here on the Dremel tool, and this is basically just friction welding. I think this might be called stir welding when they do it with metal. Anyway, you just get that going, and you just kind of friction blend it into the spot. So I'm going to use this little corner here. And it's slow going, but it certainly does the job. And that's going to be nicely blended in. It melts both the part as well as the rod. So it does a good job, but it's very impractical because, you know, every centimeter or so of filler, you have to pull that out a little bit more and re-go. And then, of course, this stuff breaks very easily, so I don't ever use this technique, actually. So the next technique is to use a soldering iron, and this is set to 250 degrees, which is a good temperature for melting ABS. And you can see that I can just press this orange filament and sort of blend it into the underlying plastic. So what I need to do is just use that sort of technique. Use this flat-sided soldering tip as a spatula, and just sort of spatula build just build up that filament right there. And this is pretty time consuming, but I find that this is the strongest technique because I am in control of the whole of everything. I can control how much I'm melting the filament, how much time I spend sort of preheating up the underlying, and you can see it's just sort of like real slow motion sculpting. The final technique is to use a 3D printer pen. So you can see I've got all the filament in here, and this feeds when I press the button here, and the knob, or I'm sorry, the dial here on this side determines how fast it feeds. So that's actually the fastest. You can see how fast it just spits out like that. But that's actually way too fast. So there's nothing fast about welding plastic. Can you guys hear that? See how slowly it's spitting out? And then you hear those little popping and crackling sounds. That is the sound of wet filament. And wet ABS is not ideal. It's actually kind of contaminated and not as strong, but it'll still do the job, so I'm not too worried about it. So anyway, yeah, you just put it on the slow setting and just kind of dwell that nozzle over the underlying plastic to get the underlying plastic nice and hot as you extrude very slowly. So yeah, I'm just going to build this up. It's going to take me an hour or so to get all these holes done. And then after I've kind of got a big rough bit of buildup happening, I can come back around and sand it down, sculpt it, whatnot, to get it to its final shape. So you can see I've got these holes where they were broken. I've got them all built up and ready to be kind of sanded and further worked on. But that's the addition of the material, just like that. Now after the material has been added, I find that I can come around and sort of adhere it a little bit better to the underlying plastic with the soldering iron. This step's not necessary, but also you can use the soldering iron to just sort of smooth over some of the roughness if you want to sort of melt it into place instead of sanding it into place. Slow going, like I said. Places like right here where I built up the orange filament too much. I mean, I really didn't have much of a hole to fill there. I was just kind of trying to bond the crack. So I'm using this little dentist's sort of bit. It's a carbide burr on my Dremel tool, and just gently sort of going over it before I hit it with a piece of sandpaper by hand. Well, that will certainly do the job. I don't like the panel gaps, and you know, they're all kinds of, you know, varied. I don't know how you would mess up a casting, because that's a plastic casting, and this is sheet molded compound, so it goes in a mold as well. So you know, it's possible that my cable here is tweaking that, pulling that seam in larger, although I don't think it would do that. It doesn't seem like an intuitive thing to me, like that would happen. But you can see I've got it to where this gap along this side is kind of consistent on both sides, and then on the outside here it's kind of nice and tight. So, and then like I said, those are two different castings from obviously two different time periods. So it is what it is. This none of the panels on this motorhome are within, God, I mean, everything everywhere is like 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch. It's all off pretty badly, but that's the best that I can do, so that's what it's going to be. Now let's finish with the grill. And the problem that we're going to have is that the repair job is never as strong as the original plastic was. So that means that if it broke the first time, it's sure to break on us again. So we need to do something to reinforce these seams, you know, the repair job on the crack. The first thing I do for cracks is I take the soldering iron, and you can see that I basically widen the crack into kind of a chasm. And I can fill that chasm then with the 3D printer pen. See, like this. And then I can take my soldering iron and sort of smooth the material, the natural base material that I sort of pushed out of the way when I widened the crack. And I can just sort of blend that back in with the new material. It makes a nice, good, you know, sort of repair job on the back side of this crack. And the final piece of the puzzle is to take some copper wiring. I mean, I guess steel would be better if you had steel wiring, but there's none of that, right? So I like to kind of mat it up at the back, and then you just set it across the crack at the most critical moment. So the outermost edge here is the most critical moment in this case. And I just sort of slowly press the fibers into the plastic by heating them up and just pressing them in, and they will sink down inside of there until they're they're pretty well buried. And that just gives some reinforcement across that crack. See, just like that. And that repair will hold for quite some time. All right, the grill here has proven to be quite a bit of work. You can see the crack that I showed you guys, repaired from the front and sanded smooth, so when that's painted, you'll never even see it. On the back, you can see that I really sort of beefed up that, that moment there because it's hidden behind the ribs, so that won't collide with anything. Down here in the center, I actually kind of had to rebuild those structural ribs, as well as repairing that crack, and there was a chunk of plastic which was entirely missing in there, so I had to fill that that moment in. And from the front, you can see it looks orange, but that's been sanded smooth, and you'll never even notice that when it's been painted. Over here, you can see I had to do quite a large crack repair. It went all the way, whoop, I'm breaking it all over again. Awesome. Anyway, this went all the way down there, and then over here, I had a bunch of cracks to repair as well, which it sounds like I'm going to need to, it's okay. So I'll be okay. So yeah, those were most of the cracks. I think there was one more right here. But that was all the cracks, and then I've sanded it. You can see I've hit it with a 150 grit sandpaper, so it's kind of roughed up and ready to receive some plastic primer paint. But we're going to hold off on the paint until I'm, tackling the paint job for the whole motorhome. So let's get this reinstalled.
What's this orange? What are you doing here?
Well, that was the plastic that I used to repair the grill just now.
Can I break it?
You can break it, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So the other thing that I forgot to mention is I used this metric M5 by 0.8 to chase the threads. This is a die, and I just chased the rusty threads, so I should be able to I don't know, put a little WD-40 on those threads or something and get some new bolts, and everything will go together quite nicely. So yeah, you can see the fitment is quite good here, just loosely kind of thrown in place. So there's no bolts holding it down, and we can see that the part matches pretty well to the shape of the body of the motorhome. So that cable, the cable pull inside of there is doing a nice job, and I don't think this is going to crack on me again. Let's talk about these replacement headlights. They are apparently DOT approved. It says DOT SAE, so I don't know if that's just a BS sticker, BS stamp on that from China, but it seems legit. So the light that came out, one of these classic halogen lights, you can see it's got the nice consistent parabolic shape to the back of the lens, and this one has these cutouts in the fins which seem to match the parabolic shape. So it should fit right in there, except for one thing that protrudes, and that is this vent. So that is not going to be flush. And you can see in the dust, that little pattern right there, it's colliding. So I need to drill a hole right through that metal so that the vent has somewhere to pass through. All right, well, you can see the vent there poking through nicely. I started out this hole using the step drill bit on the hand drill there, and then I finished it out with this other larger carbide burr bit here in my Dremel tool. These things are wonderful for shaping holes in sheet metal.
Dad, I got a fish from this way, and it was this big.
Really? That's cool. Is that your fishing pole? Nice. This I really don't like. That for sure is going to vibrate and cut into the cord, and then, that would kill this. I wish this had the normal plugs like the one that came out, just kind of sticking out the back, but it's got this cord instead. So yeah, I'm gonna have to do some sort of a relief cut, and then maybe wrap a bunch of electrical tape around this just to give it a nice big buffer before it starts cutting into the cord, because that's an accident waiting to happen. All right, there we have it, ready to be reinstalled. You can see the cutout for that and the cutout for the wire, which is nicely in the middle, although it does rub. I have wrapped it with some electrical tape that you can see, but it's just a matter of time before that fully rubs into and cuts through the electrical tape and into the wires. So that's a ticking time bomb for sure. Just think of your, those vibrating saws that they sell now that are all the rage, super popular for working on carbon fiber or fiberglass. This is basically a slow motion one of those. As you're driving down the road, zzz, and it will just cut right through there. I've done my best to really dull and blunt and round over this edge of the sheet metal here, but it's still sheet metal. It's still a sharp edge. So I think the last thing that I'm going to do is to just zip tie. Yeah, that'll do. So this side up, and that loose loop of zip tie is now kind of holding that wire dead center in the cutout. So I don't think I'll have any problems now. All right, that's one side down, and look at how well this screw lines up with the headlight. And that headlight is being indexed or lined up with that hole that was cut in the SMC for this to sit in. So this is perfectly aligned with the, I don't know, the valence, whatever you want to call this. And so those panel gaps, extremely tight, like basically the width of a fingernail on this side, and on this side we've got what, almost a 1/4 inch. So that's not my fault, not my problem. It was not caused by the cable pull. And also that cable pull did a wonderful job of cinching up this this hood. I've never seen the fitment so good at the corners. It used to sit up like that, so I could get my finger in there until I had to push it down and then tighten this. So now it just sort of flops, and it's just much better. So that cable pull was a good thing. All right, there it is, all repaired and updated and ready for paint. Now I'm still looking for the lower lights, those square. I would like to get some clear lenses. Maybe I will have to draw them up in CAD and 3D print them, but if I can find those clear lenses, I'll put some sort of fog lights, or I don't know, maybe I'll keep them as blinkers as well. But yeah, that's what it is. Hey, I'll give you guys a night shot of this at some point, but I'm gonna wait until I find those clear ones so you guys can get a full picture of exactly what this looks like going down the road at night. Well, Dax, that's the project. The front end looks pretty good, doesn't it? Yeah, but we were getting a little leak from the roof, huh?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we saw that too. Now, unfortunately, I think that everything on the roof leaks. Every single seam. And the windows are leaking. Now that I got the major leaks repaired, I'm finding all kinds of little leaks everywhere. So basically, every single seam on this motorhome is suspect and needs to get attention paid to it. Probably yours does too. If you're going to buy one of these, after 40 years, I think all the seams go bad. So I saw somebody else doing a video where he put the masking tape along, like kind of made a 1/4 inch gap with the masking tape at every seam, and then put some of this Dicor. Oh, are you okay, buddy?
Yes.
Oh, well, don't hit yourself with the wrench.
I saw myself with a resin knife, and I hit it against my nose.
Oh, don't do that. That's painful. Ouch. Anyway, yeah, it's a problem. So I'm gonna seal it up before paint, and then I'm gonna seal it up after paint. There's not gonna be anything that leaks. I'm going to town. I'm going medieval on this motorhome with the ceiling. Anyway, that'll do it for this week. So hey, you're gonna see a couple of links here on the page. First one is to. Are you okay, buddy? Let me see. Let me see if it made a mark. Nope, we're okay. We're okay.
Yes, but I just saw myself.
Well, don't do it again. Anyway, you'll see the links on the screen. One of them is to the binge watching playlist to catch you up on everything that's been done to the motorhome so far. And the other one, maybe, if it's there, is to help this channel out. I mean, I'm starting to get some more viewership, but I really could use the financial help. So I would appreciate if that link is active. I'm trying to figure out how to get the website working or whatever. So, anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.
Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.